Hey everyone, so in this video I want to talk about lockdown 2 and how it's going to affect the serviced accommodation industry. But before we get started, I just want to drop a few things in. Don't forget to head over to officialryanluke.com. We've been running loads of great challenges recently, loads of free training, and there's loads of awesome stuff on there for you guys to get help with your property journey. And as always, don't forget to hit the bell notification below and subscribe to the channel. So lockdown 2, it's here and it's causing a few problems. It's causing a bit of grief for everyone. I'm not sure whether you're for it, against it, don't really care about it, but there's definitely a bit of a different feel about it to the first lockdown that we had. I know out and about on the streets this morning, the cars are still moving, the schools are still operating, the coffee shops are still open, albeit takeaways, but there definitely seems to be a total different vibe. And that's a good thing, I think. You know, serviced accommodation took a beating, let's be honest about it, in end of March, April this year. And it's, you know, that's been going on that long that it feels like another year. But I know we lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bookings within the first week of lockdown happening. The cancellations were flying in, and this time that hasn't really happened. So don't get me wrong, I think since we've reopened and gone past the summer, the weekend traffic for us just hasn't been there. Bits and bobs, nothing major. Most of them have been, you know, attempted parties and things like that. But we have had bits of it. But, you know, the core business is built around contractors and getting them in through the week. So that has been ticking very nicely, and I think that will continue to tick. So I'm not panicking at this stage. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. And if you've got a good process in place for finding direct bookings, hopefully lockdown 1 taught you that you cannot rely on the channels to bring your bookings in. And if you didn't know that before lockdown 1, you should have realized it then. And then if you still haven't done anything about that and you've been relying on the booking channels since then you really need to analyze your business and understand, find out how to get direct bookings. Because direct bookings mean that you've got a stable foundation. It means that you can build your business without having to wait for somebody else to pull the strings. You know, all it takes is Airbnb to shut down again, Booking.com to shut the calendars, and all of a sudden you've got no business at all. So if you haven't done that already, I'm hoping most of you have, because I think lockdown 1 taught people a lot of stuff about serviced accommodation and what is good about it and what you really need to improve with it. But for me, I think we're going to meander through. There's talk of the government grants being available for tier 2 businesses that are affected in the hospitality and accommodation sector. That was prior to lockdown. However, I have seen a document, although it's not been officially released, I have seen a document from a legal firm who suggests that anything from tier 2 upwards that have been affected to full lockdown, there will be a monthly support under £50,000 rateable value. So if you've got your serviced accommodation units on business rates, as far as I read into this, you should be able to claim. Under the £50,000, it was about £993. Don't quote me on those figures, there or thereabouts. And if the rateable value is over £50,000, which probably wouldn't be most serviced accommodation units, but if you do have one, then the grant was about £2,130, something like that. So there is support available, and I do think the government know that putting us into lockdown, they then have to support us, and that is one benefit. But what I'm getting a lot of questions of is, should I be getting into serviced accommodation right now? Is now a good time to get into serviced accommodation? Now, let me put it this way. If you're going to get into serviced accommodation, are you getting into it for the next few months? Or are you getting into it for the next 3, 5, 10, 15 years, as long as the business continues to operate, as long as the strategy continues to work? You know, I think people have got a very short-sighted view of whether they should get into something based on the next couple of months. For me, I look at getting into something for the long term. So I will analyze the profitability over the next 12 months, the next 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, and so on and so forth. And then we look at, is that a viable, you know, deal to take on? Now, many of you are struggling to find deals. So if you get presented with an opportunity to take a deal and then you don't want to do it because the next few months might not be as rosy as you would like. And let's be honest about it, with serviced accommodation, depending on locations, November, December, January isn't exactly booming. You know, it's definitely not the peak time for serviced accommodation. So it's not a bad time to get into it. Get your setups done, get your properties listed, you know, start getting that traction with them, get some contractor bookings in there, you know, pick up some of the tourist activity in Christmas, because I keep saying this, but pre-Christmas week, serviced accommodation is going to be busy. I do think that no matter where we are, no matter what rules are in place, I think people are going to have had enough by the time lockdown finishes, and even if they want to extend it, I do think they're going to have to give us a break prior to Christmas week, because if they don't, I don't think many people are going to listen to it. I think a lot of people are going to want to be around their friends and family, specifically their family, around Christmas. And I think where they would have once went and stayed in the spare room of the house, they might break the rules and say, do you know what, I'm going to go near my family, but I'll, you know, respect that they are, you know, not going to live in their house, and I'll rent a serviced accommodation property. So I think pre-Christmas week. Now I'm, you know, rightly or wrongly, you know, I'm not here to enforce the law. I'm just saying what I feel will happen based on the conversations I have with people, the mindset of most people around this new lockdown and around what's going on. It generally, you know, if we had a vote, I'd say there'd be a higher vote would put their hands up and say they're not following the rules to the letter of the law, and that they, you know, want to see their friends and family. You know, there's a lot of people I'm speaking to who are, you know, getting mentally suppressed by this, their depression, you know, and there's a lot of other things happening. So, you know, there's a lot of that needs to be taken into account, but people are going to go and visit families around Christmas time. So I think pre-Christmas week and post-Christmas week, service accommodation is going to be very busy. That potentially, with some contractor work leading up to those first 2 weeks in December, I think potentially we could have a better December this year than we had last year. January, we'll see what happens. January is always a poor month for service accommodation in my eyes, unless you've got those long-term contractor bookings already locked in. Then, you know, it can be a poor month for you if you're just relying on the channels. And then I think we'll see it pick up next year, because the restrictions are going to have to ease next year. There's no doubt about that. Or there's going to be, in my eyes, I think we'll start seeing a bit of civil unrest if the restrictions don't start to ease. I think this has to be the last lockdown, and I think this is probably the last lockdown that they will have full control over before people maybe start to rebel a bit and just, you know, and just say sod it and go about their normal lives as best as they possibly can. I know I went for a run this morning, and you know, the parks are busy with children and families. There was people all over running. There was people exercising in the parks, you know, so a lot more people out and about. There's definitely people still in the streets, people going to shops, you know, so shops as in supermarkets. So there's definitely a bit more activity going on. So, you know, businesses, construction companies, sites, buildings, you know, your screw fixes, your B&Qs, all that sort of stuff, they're all still open. So for me, not much has changed, and that has been directly reflected in the lack, or the few, I wouldn't say lack, the few cancellations we've had this time around compared to the first time. We've had, you know, probably less than a handful. So is that because we're not getting loads of weekend bookings at the minute? Possibly, and we had all those booked in prior to the first one. But at the same time, we're still managing to make things work, we're still making profit, and we're still making moves, we're still acquiring properties and setting them up, and, you know, and just doing what we do, because I do believe that, you know, next year is going to be another year, and the restrictions are going to ease as we go into next year. So 2021, I'm hoping, is going to be a very, very profitable year for us, and I want to continue to scale, and I want to continue to scale the service accommodation side of the business as well. So try not to think of this lockdown, if you've got an opportunity to take a deal, really assess how hard you've worked to get that deal, when the next one's going to come around based on how often you're getting deals, and then from that decide whether you need to, you know, what battle plan you can do to get it going, get it up and running, and get yourself through, you know, the next couple of months. But as I said, now is a low season anyway. You know, for most operators, now is a low season anyway. It's part of the game. It's not like a landlord where he gets these 500 quid a month every single month, 12 months a year. We have fluctuations, a grand, 300 quid, 700 quid, 400 quid, whatever. You know, we have the fluctuations in the profit all the time. And you have to expect that November, December, January normally is on that lower level of the fluctuation. But, you know, July and August was off the scale. You know, we had the best July and August we've ever had. And, you know, we were pretty occupied. You know, I wasn't going to say 100% because that'd be lying, but we were very close in every single unit to being fully occupied for the whole of the months, for that 8-week period. And it did drip into September as well. We had a great September, and you know, we'll continue to push. But Service accommodation is not a thing for now, it's a long-term strategy. Property investing is a long-term strategy. So just because COVID's around the corner, or we're now in a lockdown, we cannot operate under a short-term mindset. You know, property is a long-term investment. You know, even if you're doing a rent-to-rent agreement and you're guaranteeing rent for 3 years or 5 years, that's still a long time. You know, a year from now, surely we're not still in this same situation. You know, I just can't see that being a possibility without there being masses of civil unrest and, you know, everything else getting forced and people just totally saying, no, I'm not following that, you know? So things are going to change, but things are going to change back in the right direction. I think we're at the bottom right now. So if you can acquire and you can kick on for the next few months and then watch your business grow next year, I think you should be getting after it. And, you know, I'd love to know your comments on lockdown, so feel free to drop them down below. Let me know your comments, let me know your thoughts on the video, let me know your thoughts on acquisitions. But whatever you do, don't let this suppress your business. Make educated decisions, make you know, decisions that are risk, what's the best word for this? They are calculated risk. You've taken very cautious calculations, but you've also calculated the loss of opportunity by not taking the deal that's presented right in front of you right now, because that's possibly a bigger loss than maybe battling through the next couple of months. Hope it helps. As always, head over to officialryanluke.com. Don't forget to check the podcast out, How To Property, and my book is out if anyone would like to read that. I've had some awesome feedback on that so far, so thank you very much for those that have bought it already. Again, How To Property, available on Amazon, and I wish you well, and I'll see you on the next video.